Over the past couple of years, FIFA has kinda gotten a bit stale, especially in terms of new content. Obviously, we still get the slight increments for visuals and physics, but Volta was probably the last big addition in 2019. With FIFA 23, all of that's about to change, as we're finally getting our first foray into women's club soccer. So, from Sam Kerr's cover to brand new teams, here's everything that's new this year. First up, this isn't actually the first time we're seeing women's soccer in FIFA. Now, the big thing with FIFA 23 has been how it's going to give us our first look at the women's game. But if you're already into the franchise, then you'd know that we've got international women's teams in previous games too. As a matter of fact, EA first brought all the extra teams in the 2016 edition of the game, and a lot of the top-notch players like Sam Kerr and Pernille Harder are there. At the same time though, you can't understate the importance of adding the women's club teams. Like, of course, everyone's going to tune into the Euros and support their country, but what really counts is promoting the domestic leagues, as they're incredibly underrated and can even surpass the men's game in terms of sheer entertainment. On top of that, over the past few seasons, we've seen the rise of Emma Hayes' Chelsea women's team, which has ushered us into a new era of soccer and raised the bar for everyone else. So yeah, we'd say this change was long overdue, and we're glad to see EA finally giving in to fan demands and bringing the good stuff to FIFA. But EA still needs to do a lot more work for women's soccer. Now, while the inclusion of club teams is definitely a step in the right direction, it's not really as expansive as you'd like. For instance, if you were hoping to see the Champions League runner-ups Barcelona or other heavyweights like Bayern Munich and the Portland Thorns, you're out of luck, because for now, EA's only bringing 2 leagues for the game. If there's any consolation though, then it's the fact that they're probably the top 2 leagues in the world, England and France. For example, take the Women's Super League. It's consistently been one of the most entertaining club competitions year after year and continues to deliver some stellar soccer. Oh, and it's also got one of the closest tables out there despite Chelsea winning it for 3 years in a row. On the other hand, you've got the French League, which, again, is an absolute force in Europe. We mean Olympique Lyons, arguably one of the greatest women's sides to ever grace the game, as they've won 8 Champions League titles, with a run of 5 consecutive wins from 2016 to 2020. With that said, we've got to reiterate that while this is a good place to start out, there's still a lot of work that EA needs to put in to make sure that women's soccer feels like it's on par with the men's game. Up next, Sam Kerr's FIFA cover kickstarts a new era for EA. Of course, EA didn't just add new women's clubs to its game and call it a day. We mean that would have been kinda unceremonious anyway. So instead, they did the right thing and went all out for this year's cover shoot. Now, over the past couple years, Kylian Mbappe has been the face of the franchise. After all, the PSG star is arguably one of the most promising young talents in the world right now. And while he's still here for this year's game, EA has also brought the Chelsea women's ace, Sam Kerr, into the mix. For those who don't know, Kerr is easily one of the best strikers in the game, with multiple golden boots to her name. As a matter of fact, her goal-scoring record is shockingly good, as her contributions have a net positive ratio in comparison to her appearances. On top of that, she's also the current Australian captain, so she's got an international legacy as well. Having said that, she's not actually on the cover of every edition of the game. In fact, most FIFA 23 standard editions that you'll see out in the wild will have Mbappe on them. And to find one with Sam Kerr on it, you'll have to get the Australian or New Zealand versions of the game. Or, alternatively, you could just buy the Ultimate Edition, which has her sharing the stage with the French prodigy. We understand why EA is not going all in when it comes to putting the Australian striker on all of its covers, since they've got to deal with the PSG star and all that. But it's still kinda weird to see that in a game that's literally all about celebrating the women's side of soccer, we're still not fully able to commit. But then again, it's better than nothing. Now, FIFA 23 also takes us to the World Cup later this year. When it comes to adding new game modes or competitions, FIFA hasn't really been a series that has evolved over the past few years. And honestly, things have gotten kinda stale as people grow tired of playing the same modes over and over again. With the upcoming World Cup in Qatar later this year though, EA's hoping to switch things up a bit and bring some international flair into the game. Also, if you've ever played one of these on an older FIFA title, then you'll know that there's going to be tons of new content, including national anthems, stadiums, celebrations, and much more. Oh, and that's not all, as the developer's also hoping to extend its support for women's soccer by bringing the 2023 Women's World Cup into FIFA 23. For that, we're going to get a bunch of revamped stadiums from Australia and New Zealand. The most impressive things about all of these things, however, is the fact that it's all going to be added as a part of a free post-launch update, which is definitely a welcome addition. Besides, this will also mark one of the first times when we get a World Cup, an active club season, and a relatively new FIFA game game all at the same time. So these are some pretty exciting times for fans of the franchise. After that, let's talk about what's new in terms of gameplay. If you're someone who doesn't follow the FIFA franchise religiously with every single installment, then most of them probably look and feel the same to you. But if you actually jump between each game and play for a bit, then you'll feel some subtle yet meaningful changes that can make a ton of difference over the course of a match. And that's kind of been the strategy for EA Sports, as developing an entirely new experience from scratch isn't possible in a single year. With that said, we're still getting a bunch of improvements to the fluidity of the experience in FIFA 23, especially on next-gen hardware. For instance, hypermotion, which is the whole physics and animation tech that makes things look so authentic, is getting a major boost with this game, so expect to see over 6,000 realistic player animations and contact simulations in your matches. Other than that, gameplay elements like skill moves, shooting, and set pieces are also going through a bit of an overhaul, which is good news for everyone who despises the newer format. And, last but not least, EA's finally bringing a new game mode to the franchise too, called FUT Moments. The mode is set to be an exciting spin-off of the classic Ultimate Team. Oh, and don't worry, Pro Clubs Volta and Career Mode are all going to see the same tweaks done to them as well. And finally, FIFA 23 is a fitting end to the franchise as we know it now. If you're something out of the loop, FIFA 23 will be the last game in the franchise. Well, technically at least. You see, EA's licensing deal with the Footballing Association is ending at the end of this season, and they've opted to not renew it because of financial reasons. So, from next year, you won't see FIFA 24 on the store shelves. Instead, we're getting EA Sports FC, which is a name that's still not fully grown on us. But, apart from the name itself, most things are going to remain the same, including gameplay, player likenesses, and club licenses. At the same time though, there's still a slight chance that FIFA gives away its license to another publisher, which means that we might have some new competition in the space soon. At the end of the day though, EA Sports has been a pretty good steward of the FIFA brand and has evolved the franchise to unprecedented heights. And, even though things won't quite feel the same anymore after this year, FIFA 23 feels like a fitting end to what's been an incredible journey so far. Like, we've got proper women's soccer, the new World Cups, and a big overhaul to how the game looks and controls. So it's a bittersweet retirement party for FIFA as we gear up for the next big thing. That's a wrap for this video. Do you think that EA's soccer game will lose its charm without the FIFA branding? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. We'll see you in the next one.